Freak has long been a tricky word when describing people in the sideshow world. It's no secret that it's been tossed around as a mocking, offensive label in the past, and it can still be deeply hurtful. Some performers, however, have reclaimed the word and turned it into a status of pride. From extremely rare medical conditions to a fearless stunt woman, let's dive into the history of some performers who captured the public's focus and still have a place in the cultural psyche. Number 15, General Tom Thumb. P.T. Barnum was one of the first true moguls and flamboyant showmen in American history. While his circus and collection of sideshow attractions included plenty of fabricated freaks meant for people to gawk at in disbelief, he also had a knack for exploiting real individuals. In fact, he didn't hesitate to manipulate his own cousin, Charles Stratton, after discovering he had a rare condition that stunted his growth. Charles had hardly grown since his toddler years, and Barnum explained to the boy's father that the child could help support the family by joining the circus. Since Charles couldn't easily find a job due to his size, he was eager to accept the offer. Barnum taught him to dance, sing, dress up, and impersonate historical figures. Their act began touring in the late 1700s when Barnum and Stratton's father, both undeniably shrewd and opportunistic, partnered in business. He lived, married, and then died happily without regrets. Number 14, Pearl and Ruby Jones. Striking a far more heartbreaking note in the history of freak show attractions is the grim tale of the Jones twins. These conjoined Siamese twins became a touring sensation across the United States in the late 1800s. However, they tragically died under mysterious circumstances at only 15 months old. Before their untimely death, they had already spent over half their lives on public display. It's deeply disturbing to imagine infants working under such cruel, degrading circumstances. But that was the fate forced upon the Joneses, who were ruthlessly paraded for profit by greedy adults. The twins often drew crowds gasping in horror at their appearance. Those cries of shock may well have been the last sounds these exploited children ever heard. Their story remains one of the most tragic reminders of how sideshow culture, at its worst, dehumanized even the most vulnerable. What should have been a short but gentle life was instead turned into a money horror show of unthinkable exploitation. We mean, they were just babies. Number 13, Betty Broadbent. Betty, famously known as the Tattooed Venus, became the most photographed tattooed woman of the 20th century. Her love for body art began at 14 while working as a nanny in Atlantic City. There, she met Jack Red Cloud, a heavily inked performer who introduced her to legendary tattooist Charlie Wagner. In 1927, Wagner, alongside Tony Reinhardt, Joe Van Hart, and Red Gibbons, inked over 565 tattoos on Betty's body. Wagner, who had ties with circus promoter Clyde Ingalls, helped secure Betty a spot with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. In addition to her tattoo exhibitions, she trained as a steer rider and performed with cowboy legend Tom Mix. In 1937, she launched a solo tour across New Zealand and Australia. After returning to the U.S., she continued performing until her retirement in 1967. Betty's striking image and unapologetic self-expression helped reshape public views on tattoos, transforming her body into a living masterpiece that merged circus culture with outsider art. Number 12, the world's tallest man. Standing 6 feet tall before the age of 10 and growing past 7 feet by 13, Jack Earl was a natural-born giant. Reports vary on his final height, ranging from 7 feet 7 inches to 8 feet 6 inches. Earl originally worked as a Hollywood actor before suffering a fall from scaffolding that caused serious injuries and temporary blindness, forcing him to step away from film. Soon afterward, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus came through his town with Jim Tarver billed as their giant. Earl stood noticeably taller than Tarver, and circus management saw an opportunity. They offered Earl a 1-year contract. He said he never wanted to be part of a freak show, but needing income, he had few alternatives. He would spend 14 years traveling with the Sideshow. The towering, gentle giant began his career alongside the 2 feet 2 inches Major Mite. After retirement, Earl worked as a salesman for Roma Wine. He died of kidney failure in 1952. Number 11. Leonard Trask. Not every Sideshow oddity is born with their condition. Trask proved that. Born June 30th, 1805 in Hartford, Maine, he lived a completely ordinary life until his 20s, when a severe fall from a horse damaged his spine. He continued working as a farmhand, but his back curved so drastically that his chin eventually pressed permanently against his chest, and things only deteriorated from there. In 1840, another brutal fall worsened his condition. Then, in 1853, he was hurled from a wagon, fracturing 4 ribs and his collarbone. In 1858, he survived a stagecoach crash that sliced a 5-inch gash into his skull. Doctors didn't believe he'd survive, but he did. His wife remained loyal, and together they raised 7 children. No longer able to perform manual labor, Leonard turned to Sideshow appearances, billing himself as a living anatomical mystery. Though disfigured and contorted, Leonard Trask discovered an unexpected sense of purpose and a strange form of fame through enduring unimaginable physical trauma. Number 10. The Bearded Lady. Another of P.T. Barnum's famed discoveries, Annie Jones, remains one of the most recognized performers in freak show history. After a short but wildly successful run at Barnum's museum, he offered her parents a generous 3-year contract worth $150 a week. Jones, whose genetic disorder caused excessive facial hair, the origin of which remains unknown, also earned recognition for her musical talents, not just her bearded appearance. Strangely, while under the care of Barnum's hired nanny, Jones was kidnapped by a New York phrenologist who tried to feature her in his own act. She was eventually found in upstate New York, where the phrenologist claimed she was his daughter. The incident went to court, and Jones ran to her parents. The judge promptly dismissed the case, and Jones's mother remained by her side throughout her career. Beyond the circus and its chaos, Jones built her own life. She married twice before falling ill while visiting her mother in Brooklyn. She died of tuberculosis in 1902. Number 9. The Human Owl. Martin Lurel became a super-duper celebrated Sideshow icon for his astonishing physical anomaly. Born in the early 1900s, Lurel gained widespread attention for his rare ability to rotate his head nearly 180 degrees, creating the illusion that he could twist it like an owl. Though not a contortionist in the classic sense, his act focused entirely on this one uncanny skill. Audiences were mesmerized as he slowly turned his head around while keeping his body perfectly still. The movement, eerie yet precise, wasn't caused by any disorder, but was the result of years of intense flexibility training. He performed with several traveling circuses, including Barnum and Bailey, during the peak of Sideshow fame in the 1920s and 1930s. His routine blended mystery, control, and sheer anatomical disbelief, captivating crowds wherever he performed. While little is known about his life off stage, Martin remains a prominent figure in circus lore, thanks to a singular ability that no other performer has ever convincingly replicated. Number 8. The Ape Woman. Julia Pastana, aka the Ape Woman, was born in 1834 in Mexico with an extremely rare genetic disorder known as hypertrichosis, which caused coarse black hair to grow across her entire body. She also suffered from gingival hyperplasia, a condition that enlarged her gums, giving her a uniquely striking appearance. These combined features led to her being showcased in freak shows and circuses, where she was cruelly described as part woman, part animal. But beyond the spectacle, Julia was a truly talented performer. She could sing, dance, and entertain on major stages, including Broadway, drawing massive crowds across Europe and the US. Tragically, her personal life was marked by exploitation. Her husband and manager, Theodore Lent, profited from her condition. In 1860, Julia gave birth to a son who inherited her disorder and died shortly after. Julia died days later from complications. Her embalmed body was displayed across Europe for decades, until finally being returned to Mexico for burial in 1972. Number 7. Frank Richards. In the early 1900s, American performer Frank Richards discovered a bizarre talent during his service in World War I. He could absorb powerful punches to the stomach without flinching. After the war, he joined the vaudeville comedy scene, where he let people punch him in the gut for cash. The act quickly gained traction as spectators eagerly lined up to test his limits. Believing the blows weren't strong enough, Frank began inviting heavyweight boxers, including world champion Jess Willard, to take their best shot. None could faze him. He later escalated his act by allowing people to jump on his torso and even withstand full-force strikes from an 18-pound sledgehammer. To push things even further, Frank once had a 100-pound cannonball fired directly at his abdomen and still walked away unscathed. Somehow he survived every single time. His wild, fearless performances made him a vaudeville icon, remembered not for illusions or stunts, but for a stomach that seemed genuinely indestructible. He truly became a legend. Number 6. Alexander P. Linton. Sword swallowing remains one of the most dangerous and thrilling performance arts, and Alexander made it his legacy. Born in Roscommon, Ireland, Linton relocated to New York by the 1920s, where he began performing as a magician at venues like Huber's Museum and the Bowery. By the 1930s, he had mastered the craft of sword swallowing, claiming it was a family skill passed down by his father. Linton later secured a Guinness World Record for swallowing 4 27-inch swords at once. But it wasn't just the danger that made him iconic. His heavily tattooed body added a dramatic visual edge to his stage presence. Linton's influence went well beyond his own act. He mentored 2 successors, Bobby Reynolds and Captain Don Leslie, helping keep the tradition alive. His blend of physical risk, flair, and striking appearance solidified him as one of the most unforgettable sword swallowers in vintage sideshow lore. Number 5. The Elephant Skin Girl. Susie, widely recognized as the Elephant Skin Girl, was born with ichthyosis, a rare and agonizing skin disorder that caused her skin to grow thick, cracked, and dry, resembling that of an elephant. Her unusual appearance made her the target of mockery and isolation throughout her youth. Searching for a place where she'd be accepted, Susie joined the sideshow circuit in the late 1920s. She quickly rose to fame as audiences were both fascinated and disturbed by her condition. While her stage presence was bold and commanding, Susie was known offstage as quiet and withdrawn. She rarely discussed her illness and often chose solitude. Her thick, gray, deeply fissured skin made her one of the most instantly recognizable figures in the sideshow scene. She traveled extensively across the country and performed for decades, eventually settling in New York. Susie continued working well into the late 1960s, long after the golden age of the sideshow had begun to disappear into history. All right, now, let's head over to number 4, Sarah Biffin. If you've read Charles Dickens, you might recall the name Sarah. Born without arms and with legs that didn't function, her life became a story of relentless determination. She mastered writing, painting, and embroidery, using only her mouth. Her remarkable talent eventually reached Charles Dickens, who was so inspired he featured her in 2 novels, Martin Chuzzlewit and Nicholas Nickleby. Sarah traveled with Emmanuel Dukes, who recognized her rare skill and helped her share it with the world. They toured fairs and circuses, where audiences paid to watch her draw, sew, and paint, all entirely by mouth. Spectators were stunned by the precision of her craftsmanship. Her art became so sought after that she sold individual pieces for 3 guineas each, a significant sum at the time. Sarah's story was never rooted in pity. It was centered on excellence. She wasn't just admired for her resilience, but for her humanity. Number 3. Frank Lentini. Frank gained international recognition as the three-legged man. He was born with a rare condition called polymyelia, which resulted in a fully formed third leg emerging from his torso. This extra leg, positioned between his 2 natural ones, had its own functioning hip, knee, and foot, and he could move it independently. While his condition was medically rare, it became the core of his identity in the sideshow world. At age 8, Frank and his family relocated to the United States, where he soon entered the circus scene. He performed with some of the biggest acts, including Ringling Brothers and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Frank incorporated his third leg into his routines. He could walk with it and even kick a soccer ball, to the amazement of onlookers. His performance wasn't solely based on spectacle. It featured charm, humor, and physical mastery. He became one of the most successful and well-paid entertainers of his era. Number 2. William Hutchings. William Hutchings, famously known as the Boy Lightning Calculator, was a math prodigy who amazed audiences under the promotion of P.T. Barnum. He could solve complex calculations mentally, adding, subtracting, and multiplying large numbers instantly without jotting anything down. Hutchings worked at Barnum's American Museum until it was destroyed in the fire of 1868. Then, in 1872, he performed his astounding skills at the White House for President Ulysses S. Grant, further solidifying his name. After his time in the spotlight, Hutchings shifted to education. He eventually published a book teaching others how to replicate the arithmetic techniques that had once made him a sideshow sensation. His sharp mind and rapid-fire computations weren't just a gimmick. They laid the groundwork for a respected, intellectual legacy. Number 1. The Elephant Man. The extraordinary Joseph Merrick, known as the Elephant Man, lived a truly remarkable life, permanently burdened by the stigma of a devastating physical condition that didn't stop him from becoming one of the most intelligent and decent men of the 19th century. The well-known sideshow performer was essentially forced into his fate as a horrifying attraction in popular entertainment. Stricken with a congenital disorder that caused massive growths across his body, he was disfigured to the point of being unrecognizable, earning him the nickname Elephant Man. Merrick, having fled home early on, saw freak shows as his only option for income. People paid to shriek at his appearance, which obviously took an unimaginable toll on his mental health. By many reports, Merrick was highly intelligent, though his emotional well-being was deeply damaged due to his tragic life. Doctors at the time couldn't identify his condition, and Merrick struggled to find peace. He died at 27. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.